Hello everyone, and welcome back for this week's discussion on the Eliksni. This is part 3 in our series covering the history of, for the different main species in the Destiny universe. Previously, we had covered the Cabal as well as the Vex. The Eliksni recorded history mainly focuses around their experiences post-collapse, in the wake of the Traveler fleeing their system. Known as the Whirlwind, a dark and terrifying force attacked their homeworld of Reese, leaving the survivors to escape in pursuit of the Traveler, drifting in the open expanse of space. By the time they arrived in our Sol system, they have fallen to the point of being little more than pirates, torn apart with infighting. The main houses we know in Destiny are only a tragic semblance of their once former glory. Forever altered by the Whirlwind and following drift, we can draw clear lines from their noble past to their adulterated clans known by the citizens of the last safe city. In the days of Reese, we know of a handful of houses by name, but it is suggested that there were more. Considering the Eliksni were a multi-star society, this is hardly surprising. The great houses seem to live in concert with one another, each fulfilling their own specific roles. While individuals were born into their houses, not chosen, no houses were deemed as being more important than the other. Instead, they valued and cherished the other houses. We have the houses of Dancers, known for their proficiency with technology and their generosity. Weavers, known for weaving the precious egg cloth for hatchlings, as well as regular textiles. Stone, known for their unwavering defense of the Eliksni. Rain, known for their Vatic prowess, offering prophecy for the future. Kings, known for their leadership. Judgment, known for their vast insight. Judgment was both Kel and Dreg in Eliksni society. Winter, known for their scientific achievements. At least 2 of these houses took on new names after their arrival in the Sol system. The House of Dancers became known as Devils, and the House of Weavers became known as Wolves. By adopting the name branded to them by the humans, replacing their once gentle past for new aggressive identities, we can see just how far they feel they have fallen from their origins. There is one more house of old we hear mention of, House of Scar, though we know nothing about them outside of them apparently being felled by the House of Winter during the Long Drift. The Whirlwind. In the days before the fall of Reese, the skies glowed green with atmospheric ether, and hatchlings played with technological marvels. From the limited records that exist of the Whirlwind, it seems that the arrival of the Darkness Fleet was largely unheralded, taking the Eliksni by surprising force. We receive confirmation in the lorebook page, Call of the Cryptolith, Return, that it is in fact the Hive that attacked Reese. A great resistance took place, the House of Stone living up to their duties, providing a wall of protection for their people. Unfortunately, as Chelchis, the Kel of the House of Stone, fought valiantly for their defense, he looked up and saw an empty sky. The Traveler had abandoned them. As Chelchis began to lose ground to the pressing forces of the Hive's might, they are left to wonder, where is the great machine? Where is the great machine? In the wake of the travelers' departure, many frightened Eliksni took to ships and chased after their great machine. Given the panicked state and unknown destination for the traveler, many of these ships would find themselves woefully unprepared for the journey. The Long Drift. A dark time in the history of the Eliksni. This is where we truly see the devastation of the once great Eliksni society. Not from an external invading force, but tragically, from within. Forced from their homes under duress, it seemed their only chance for survival was to follow the traveler that had once blessed them. With no way to determine the length of their journey and absolutely no time to prepare, their only hope was to rely on their technology to track the signal of the great machine. Given the amount of time that humanity spent in the presence of the traveler before the arrival of the Eliksni, we can assume their ships are not capable of matching speeds with that of the great machine, further isolating themselves into despair. As could you imagine your only perceived avenue of hope getting further and further away from you, despite your efforts to give chase? Through the shared stories of Eliksni, like Mithrax, Ido, and Varix, we are given numerous accounts of Eliksni ships finding each other in the empty expanse, only to plunder each other for resources, leaving one another for dead. Not only did the houses begin to turn on each other, there began to fester a deep darkness amongst the Eliksni. It was during the Long Drift that the practice of docking and ether rationing began. Docking for Eliksni is a form of punishment or demeaning retribution that involved cutting the arms off an individual, placing stunting caps on the stumps. This was further exacerbated by the ether rationing. Ether, a once nearly endless resource on their planet of Reese, is essential to the growth cycle for an Eliksni. By limiting their supply of ether, it effectively kept the punished individual weak and incapable of climbing back up the ranks. There is a small spoiler warning here for the next 45 seconds or so, if you haven't found access to the new lore available with the Final Shape Collector Edition lorebook. I'll put up a banner during this time of the video to help know when to tune back in. Cheers! Newly uncovered transcripts by Ido pertaining to the wreckages recovered during the Long Drift detail some interactions the Eliksni may have had with the remains of other civilizations, long since lost to the battle with the darkness. This book also gives us our first indications that there were in fact some peaceful trades between the Eliksni during this time, warning of other more nefarious ships, or of zones that had already been picked clean of resources. Outside of this, most records available to us indicate this was largely a hostile time for the Eliksni. Spoiler section over. Feel free to resume watching. Cheers! As the Eliksni finally caught up with the Great Machine, they were devastated to find it had already given its blessings to a new species. Strange, gangly creatures, these usurpers were a living blasphemy to the once great Eliksni and their Great Machine. Surely these humans were not more fit for the traveler's gifts than they were. Entering a seemingly resource-rich environment compared to their Long Drift, spurred on by their jealousy of the inhabitants of Sol, a great bloody conflict would take place across the system. Some desired to prove their worth to the Great Machine by showing their strength and resolve even after the whirlwind, while others simply seethed with rage and wished to destroy humanity, Whatever the motivation, this led to many great travesties that are still remembered in the hearts of those who lived through it. Both sides suffered dire casualties at the hands of each other. Humans telling of tragedies like the burning of London, while the Eliksni speak in hushed whispers about a demon saint. Despite starting out as the main antagonist for the vanilla Destiny experience, over the years we've learned so much context about the Eliksni people, it's hard not to develop empathy for their situation. Much as humanity's experience with the Traveler, the Eliksni were blessed by the Silent Entity. Never offering direct and tangible guidance, the Eliksni were left to find a reason they had been uplifted with the light. Suddenly, an unknown terror almost utterly wipes out their civilization, the remaining survivors forced to drift in the void, resorting to plundering, and, by reports, even cannibalism, only to finally catch up with what they thought would be their salvation, and realize the Great Machine is still just as silent, but now even ignores the Eliksni with its gifts in favor of another species. As hard as it may be to believe, while the whirlwind was truly terrible, somehow the resulting long drift was worse for the Eliksni people. That's it for this week's episode, focusing on the history of the Eliksni, covering from the whirlwind up to their first interactions with the residents of the Sol system. Previously, we've covered the Cabal and the Vex, and next week we'll be covering the Hive, arguably the species we have the most lore for. This topic is so large, I had to put it last in the enemies list, so I could take notes while I did all the other ones. I'm excited to cover some of the lesser-known events and characters from their history. We have so much to choose from. Thanks again for hanging out. Have a good one.